Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we have some spoilers for episodes 79 and 80, potentially, of Campaign 3. So if you aren't caught up with Campaign 3, which would be episode 79, click off, spoiler warning, final warning, spoilers, because I will be spoiling things today, because I really feel the need to talk about this before episode 80 comes out. So spoilers. So now that the spoiler warning is out of the way, we can actually move on to today's video, which is Matt Mercer is sneaky for this, and what I mean by that is he is sneaky for what he did at the end of episode 79, which is introduce two doppelgangers to the trust task that the Bell's Hells are going to be doing in Nana Mori's little game that she's playing with everyone, that this quote-unquote scavenger hunt that FCG and Nana Mori came up with. Now, the trust exercise is the last one they have to do, and Nana Mori introduced two doppelgangers to the situation. Now, Matt explained how it's going to work, and he said there is going to be cards given out at the beginning of the next session. This is what we have to focus on. Next session, at the beginning of that. He has told them how it works already, and whoever is given the doppelganger card has a task to deal with the party or sow seeds of dissent, or whatever their task is going to be. We actually don't know.
Two of you will be removed, and doppelgangers taking your place.
So good.
This is about to be like a game of werewolf.
But you get to figure out who that is before they ruin this for you.
It's among us.
And that's where we're going to end the episode tonight.
You take that back. God. Damn it.
We're going to jump into this next time. So yeah, we have cards of you being yourself, and then two doppelganger cards that will shuffle in.
So two people will play doppelgangers.
All of you will be shuffled, be passed out. All of you secretly look at your cards next time, and you'll get to figure. And it'll tell you if you're a doppelganger, what your objectives are, and where some of the traps are in the map. Clues to how to set it up.
Tasty. This
So
is so tasty.
we'll see how trust works next time.
Wait, how is it? Okay.
We'll go over it more next time.
This is so fun.
Because I just wanted to give a little taste of what's coming, but next time we'll get to dig into it before we actually begin.
But we do know there is going to be two players of the 7 who are going to be given a doppelganger card, and they're going to have to somehow dismantle the team. They're going to have to disrupt the challenge ahead of them, which is to grab 3 branches within the woods surrounding the well, and then they have to put the tree branches back into the well. So, right. We now know the task. We now know the looming threat that's involved with everything. But why is Matt Mercer sneaky for this? Well, in my opinion, him introducing this a week in advance for both the players and us, realistically, based on how things are recorded and how they come out for us, we all have a week to now sit and stew on who could potentially be the threat, who could potentially be the doppelganger. And I think that is the super fascinating part and what makes this so sneaky, and how it's already going to be very, very difficult for the group to sort of figure out how to work together in this moment. So why do I think that things are going to be very difficult for the group? Well, with Matt introducing this sort of thing a week in advance, it gives the players and us time to think about plans for how they could deal with the rest of the party, or how they're going to, be a doppelganger. So let's use Travis for an example. Travis now has a week to think about how he is going to plan for either being the doppelganger himself or figuring out who the doppelganger is. He has 6 other people to sort of worry about. Technically, it's double that because he has to worry about 2 people within the 6 group figure. So realistically, he has to worry about everyone times 2. So that's very scary for trying to figure out these plans. So he has to figure out who and how to deal with the doppelganger. Who the doppelganger is and how is something he has to figure out if he himself is not the doppelganger. So if he is the doppelganger, he has to come up with a plan to sort of achieve his goal of stopping the players or disrupting the players from being able to trust each other. That is the whole point of this thing. They are to not trust each other in any sort of way. And by being the doppelganger, your objective will simply to be do that, to stop them from being able to trust, to sort of make everyone else think that someone else is the doppelganger so that they sort of gain up against them. And it's just going to be a massive mess for them to try to figure it out. The other half of this is Travis is going to have to make 6 plans for dealing with 6 other people who could potentially be doppelgangers as well. So Matt has done this for everyone. Because he told them they have like a week to sort of sit on this and stew, they're all going to think of plans on how to deal with the others and how to be a doppelganger. So now no one is going to trust each other coming into this trust game because they all have plans on how to deal with each other. And I think that is incredibly sneaky and is so perfectly in line with this sort of exercise that it's going to truly test if this group is going to be able to function. And I'm super excited for this and super hyped for the idea. And thank God we don't have to wait 2 weeks before this comes out, because the answer is coming on Thursday. And I'm so excited to see what happens during all of this. But the idea that Matt has introduced is perfect. The idea of sort of sowing dissent between the group has already started with this, because he's introduced this idea that you could be a doppelganger or someone beside you could be a doppelganger. Trust is out the frickin' window and no longer exists, and I think that is so exciting. So with these seeds of dissent already planted between the players, I do believe that there is actually a third option that I think Matt is going to go with when it comes to sort of dealing with the doppelgangers. And that is, they're a red herring. They are not actually going to be in the game. There are no doppelgangers. Everyone is going to be handed a card that will say, you are yourself, go get the tree branch. But because Matt has already planned out the whole dissent thing and said there are doppelgangers, no one's going to trust each other anyway. So they're all going to be like, are you a doppelganger? Are you a doppelganger? It's basically going to be the whole Spider-Man looking at himself thing. It's going to be like that, where everyone is sort of non-trusting toward each other because they could be a doppelganger. Meanwhile, there are 0 doppelgangers. And I think that perfectly aligns with how this task will go, because you don't want someone to not be involved in the conversation. You don't want someone to not be involved in the trust building exercise. So if everyone's there and they sort of trust each other, even though there's a potential threat looming, that's huge. That'll be a literal way that they've shown that they trust each other. But if they fail, I think the fail is super, it's like, this is going to be a pass fail. It's going to be, do they trust each other or do they not? Are they able to work together even with this looming threat that someone on their team is not on their team? Or are they going to fall apart and instantly start accusing each other of being an enemy? And I think this is going to be a very long, drawn out pass fail. And if they fail, well, realistically, they have to work on their trust and you know, sort of deal with it that way. And they won't get whatever the item is that Nanamori is going to hand them. Obviously, if they succeed, they won't need to worry about it because they trusted each other the entire time and no one was a doppelganger. So realistically, trusting them, even though with the threat looming over top of them that someone is potentially evil, is good for the team. And I think that is exactly what's going to happen here. And I think this would be the most interesting outcome, because we're going to see how much people actually do trust each other within the Bell's Hells. So now with that out of the way, I sort of want to make a prediction, if you will. It's not going to be a prediction because it's totally random who ends up with the doppelganger cards, if there is in fact doppelganger cards. But I kind of want to go over who I think would be like the most interesting to be the doppelganger and who would be the least interesting. And I think the least interesting would be Laudna, Ashton, and Fern, because they're kind of like mildly lowest at the bottom for trust right now. Laudna with Delilah, obviously, and then Fern and Ashton with the whole Crystal debacle. They kind of, Fern less so than Ashton, but they kind of have less trust right now. And those are the people who I think could, you know, be people who this trust exercise is built around. They need the whole trust thing to be built around them to earn trust back. So I think those characters would be the most boring to sort of have be the doppelganger. The characters who I think would be the most fun would be Chetney and Orem. Chetney has earned a lot of people's trust with the way he's been talking recently, and Orem has had everyone's trust from the get-go. He is the emotional center of everyone sort of going on right now, and, you know, he seems to be the most mature, so to have him be the character who is, you know, the doppelganger would be huge. And then Chetney, I feel like, is the only other real interesting one, because a lot of people don't distrust Chetney. Chetney is very trusted by most of them, with the exception of when the moon sort of affects him, but that hasn't happened in ages. And when push comes to shove, Chetney is going to be blunt with you. Chetney is going to be the character who tells you, fuck off, leave, if you're going to be this way, like he did with Ashton. And I feel like that character, who is a very, much like Orem, who I wouldn't say is like emotionally strong, but he isn't emotionally weak compared to a handful of other characters who, like Laudna decided to go hide in a forest from everyone for an entire night. Or like Fern, who did the same thing. So I feel like Orm and Chetney would be the most interesting to me because they seem like the emotional centers, the emotional grounding points of the team, and to have them be the ones who sort of go out to attack the team would be the most interesting to me. And there you have it. I just wanted to talk about how genius I thought this was from Matt, and I really, really appreciate the idea that he's putting forward of the whole potentially there is no doppelganger thing, or sowing the seeds of dissent for an entire week before the players play. He's done this a few times where he's like said something here so you have enough time to plan for it. I think the biggest one was like the whole Avantika situation in campaign 2, in my opinion, when they had like a whole week to plan how things were going to go, and then they basically executed it perfectly. So I'm very excited to see how this goes. When they have prep time, the Critical Role cast is unmatched with the shit they can come up with. So I'm very excited to see what happens. So yeah, I will see you guys on Friday for the recap of episode 80, which I'm very excited for. And the reason I said potential spoilers for episode 80 is because if I'm right, I didn't want to spoil this for anyone. But yeah, spoilers. A little late for that, I think. Anyway, peace.